Hello, gorgeous soul. It is Quinn, and I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that the awesome Joyful Living show you are about to hear is focused on business, especially living joyfully while creating your dreams and growing your business to the next level. It's jam-packed with incredible content that I know you'll love. However, if you are in business, just listening to this will only be giving you the tiniest percent of the support, inspiration, and tools available in my community. So, pause right now and make sure you are part of my free Soulful Business and Branding Facebook group to get full access to the whole enchilada I have there, which will help you create all your heart and soul is craving in a way that is both joyful and wildly successful. Now, get ready for a powerful episode of Joyful Living, and I will see you in the Soulful Business and Branding Facebook group.
Come on, come on, come on. Don't be afraid when the sky is growing gray. Don't lose faith, those clouds will drift away. Let the sun shine on through. Let the sun shine on through. Let the sun shine on through. Let the sun shine on you. Come on, come on, come on out.
Hello, everyone. This is Quinn Curtis, and you are listening to Joyful Living. And today we are joined by a very, very special guest, Adam Urbanski, who is a millionaire marketing Jedi. And we are going to be talking about the millionaire lifestyle and so many of the blocks that keep us from actually growing what we want, including if we wanted to create more money or more success in our businesses. And we're also going to be discussing how you can really work smarter in your business and more effectively to create the results that you want while preserving that joyful living lifestyle that you're after as well. And Adam is really uniquely positioned to discuss this and talk about this because of his experience. And I just want to share a little bit of that before we officially bring Adam on. But just listen to this. It's so inspiring. Adam arrived in America from Poland with only $194 in his pocket and a limited ability to speak English. Within 10 years, he was able to build and sell his first seven-figure empire in the restaurant industry and then lost it all. Then he rebuilt his empire and has consistently stayed on the bleeding edge of market trends, and today is the personal coach and mentor to some of the biggest names in the personal and professional development spaces. Adam is a dynamic, intelligent, and playful guy who is passionate beyond measure about touching and transforming people's lives. Over 100,000 coaches, consultants, speakers, experts, online marketers, and entrepreneurs worldwide turn to Adam for advice. And when he speaks, not only do people listen, but they act. While Adam is highly respected and recognized as a business guru, he's also willing to shed the armor to be vulnerable and is a devoted husband, father, and Trekkie, which is so fun, and is happy to share more of the insights about that, the life of a millionaire entrepreneur and kind of some of the aspects that we don't talk about or where we might not think are, we might not even think of. So it's just so invaluable to have Adam on the show with all of his years and years of experience and his depth of understanding of what it actually looks like to be an entrepreneur and to be successful in this market. So Adam, without further ado, we're so honored and grateful to have you on the show. Welcome.
Quinn, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I've got to talk to my copywriter, whoever wrote this intro. I'm like, I've never heard this intro before. I'm like, wow, that's a different intro.
Oh, really? Well, hopefully it's all true. No, I'm just kidding.
Like, listen to the replay going like, man, this is pretty good. I'm liking this.
Well, I am so glad. And it's really, truly, I think it's so fabulous always to hear people's stories. And it's so easy as we're just scrolling through Facebook and we see the Facebook ads of earn six figures. We never know anybody's story behind that, or it's, you have to really get to know them. So it's so invaluable to hear where you've come from and what you've created.
I think it's a very good point. And I would actually like to highlight this because successful people are invited to share about the success, But then what people are really looking for is, tell me about how you're succeeding. Tell me about the stuff that, that's working right now. What people don't see, it's the genesis. It's the 20 years that it took or 30 years that it took to become an overnight success. And unfortunately, everybody's trying to replicate what they see successful people do. Rarely anybody goes back again to the ignition point and goes like, what really, the flashpoint, what happened? How did you actually get started? What was your first step? What was your next step? What was your next step? What were the failures that you experienced? How did you overcome those failures? Because I think that it's that grit, it's that perseverance, it's that journey that actually creates the most educational content. And what most successful people teach from the position of here right now, where I already am, it's great stuff, but it's not nearly as gritty and as helpful as it could be when, if we were to record the journey.
Oh man, I could not agree more. And I'm so excited to dive in on that deeper. What was coming to mind just first off as you were saying that is I think the biggest thing that keeps us from even asking about somebody's genesis story is the belief that, well, some people are just lucky, right? Or well, they're just gifted, or they just, God just blessed them with that success, instead of actually looking at the nuts and bolts of what it actually took to create it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because so you brought God has blessed us with the success and, definitely religious connotation, right? And lots of people have kind of this duality of purpose, and they're very torn between their religious beliefs and created success in life, right? Mm-hmm. But since you brought God into this, there's a story in the Bible that God, a master gives his servants talents, right? And a year later, makes them accountable. Like, what did you do to those talents? And the guy who buried his and did nothing with it ends up being, I forget what happens, but it's fired or chastised. Like, how dare you? I gave you those talents and you squandered them, right? Yeah. And the guy who multiplies his talents, and it's kind of funny how in the Bible it's translated, whatever the monetary worth was, it's called talents. Kind of interesting because we all are given talents, and most people don't dream big enough and don't stop for long enough to think through, what would it take to harness my talents into a vehicle that's going to just exponentially explode my wealth and really impact a lot of people. And instead they kind of go like, oh, I don't know. I'm not that talented. I'm not that good. I'm not that lucky. And they find, they buy into the story of why they can't, instead of stopping and asking themselves, how can I?
Mic drop moment. It's so true. It's so true.
No, it's nothing revolutionary. It's just that, for whatever reason, it's like when I sold my businesses, and I used to teach this. I don't teach this as much anymore. But for most people, what I'm finding for small business owners, they just don't think big enough. And eventually they get so tired of the grind. And if there isn't enough big vision behind it, the grind becomes overwhelming, and they just either give up or just, they get too tired, or they're not even excited enough to do what needs to be done with the, ferociousness that it needs to be done with to kind of move forward rapidly.
It is so true. And I think it's because a lot of people start businesses too with kind of a hobby mindset, really. It's like, well, I'll try it and I'll see. Try it, that's not going to create what you want. To just try it and dabble in it. That never worked for anybody. So,
I always say that plan B is for losers.
Yeah.
If I have when I have conversations with people, say, well, I'm going to give it a shot for 90 days. I'll try it. I say, don't even bother. And they go like, well, what do you mean? I say, I can tell you exactly what will happen in 90 days. Absolutely, positively nothing. Right? Because you've already decided that it's not going to happen. Well, no, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it my best. I said, no, just by putting a timeline on it, you've already told me you're not serious about it, because the dreams, the aspirations that are big enough, they don't have a timeline. There's certain things, my absolute mission in life is to eradicate entrepreneurial failure. I'm going to go to my grave working on that dream. It doesn't have an expiration date. It's not possible to make it expire. Now, in between, there are certain projects I'm working on, and those projects might have, I'm having a deadline when I want to meet it. But if it's a big enough project, by the time I get to the deadline, I'm looking at, okay, where am I? What did I accomplish? What's the progress? And then what's the next step? It's not like I'm giving up. It's what's the next step? How do we accelerate? If I didn't hit the goal I wanted to hit, what happened? What do I need to do differently for the next 90 days? but it's never just 90 days and I'm going to give it a try, whatever happens. Now, I'll tell you where, it's kind of a personal story. When I first came to the United States, I was trying to immigrate from Poland before. So I went to Austria, and I had this vision that if I go to Austria, and it's kind of, it could be a long story, so I'm going to truncate this.
No,
It
you're
was
good.
incredibly difficult to get a U.S. entry visa in Poland, like nearly impossible. There was a line to get into the embassy, and that line typically takes 1 year from the time you go into the line to the time you get into the embassy, to the point that the line itself had its own association with regular weekly and monthly meeting where you had to check
Like the
in.
physical line. Like,
Physical line.
oh my gosh.
All right. Now, you're not in this line every day, but again, like once a week, once every few weeks, you have to check in that you're still in, you're still standing in line, you still have your place. So I thought, well, that's just not going to work for me. So I'm going to go to Austria. And in Vienna, I'm going to go to Canadian consulate, and Canadians will love me. So they're going to give me visa instantly. And once I'm in Canada, all I got to do is just come close to the border and wave to the Americans. They're going to go, oh, we were waiting for you. Come on over. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but in my head, I really had this,
Yeah.
this is how it's going to work. Like once Americans get a whiff that I'm in Canada, of course, they're going to just like, come on over.
Come on.
Well, the whole thing got screwed up. The timing got messed up. I was in Vienna. I didn't speak German. I didn't speak English. So I had an appointment in Canadian consulate. I missed that appointment. I came late, kind of almost like a movie scene. I was speaking Polish, but very slowly and enunciating, hoping that somehow it's going to translate itself to German and English, because in movies it works, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, they got me a big old denied stamp in my passport. It got dark. I had no friends. I had no connections. And I put my big backpack back on, and I marched back to the train station. And the next morning I was back home like, ta-da! Previous morning I was saying goodbye to people. I won't see you for 20 years. I'm immigrating. And the next morning, ta-da! I'm back, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
So when I eventually got visa to US and I went and I landed in New York, I had hotel paid for 10 days. I had $194, very little money. I had no connections. I didn't speak English. And I had an open ticket, 6-month open ticket. In my first night in a hotel room, I sat on my bed and I stared. I had a roommate, and he checked out after a long flight, and I sat there on the edge of my bed, just staring at this ticket. I don't know for how long, and eventually I ripped it up into. I shredded it, and I
Wow.
knew that if that ticket is open, when the money runs out, I'm gonna get scared. If that's what it takes, I would have walked to JFK and cashed in on that return ticket. And I mean, that was not an option. So I just destroyed the ticket, and I had to make it work.
Wow.
So when I say, plan B is for losers, look, I always have a contingency. Like, you have to acknowledge there are certain things that may not go as you plan. But then as soon as you acknowledge them, you create a plan to work whatever you have to do, whatever you have to do, however you have to do it, to not make that happen.
Man, I love that so much. That's so inspiring. And the thought that came, maybe this is a little devil's advocate, but I know that you've got something here, is what if you are saying there's no plan B on like a plan that genuinely isn't working and won't work for you? And I know you see this with a lot of your clients, that they're like so set, nope, I'm going to do it this way. And it ultimately is not going to create what they want.
Yeah, so it's now we could play semantics, right? Because
Yes.
it's plan versus strategy. What does which word mean? So what's what?
Yeah.
And when you're going after something and it isn't working, by what I mean by plan B is that you change your goals, you change your targets. So you say you want to do this, but then you go, oh, that got a little hard. You see it all the time. People go, you know what I'm really going to do is I'm into blogging right now. I'm going to make my blog like the blog to go to for X market. And I'm going to work hard. I'm going to write articles, and I'm going to make it all good. And I'm going to make money through affiliate fees, blah, blah, blah. And then, they write the first 3 articles and they realize how hard it is. And they go, what I just discovered is like this affiliate thing. And I'm going to do my Facebook thing. It's like, oh, geez. All right, there we go again, right?
Yes.
So what's your actual plan? So if your plan is to make your blog the go-to place, your traffic source for whatever, then yeah, you write your first 3 articles and you realize, okay, well, that took a lot of time. There's no way I'm gonna reach my goal if things work this way. What's a different way to approach it? But the goal of I'm gonna use my blog as my revenue driver does not change. It's just you have to shift the strategies, you have to shift the tactics a little bit, because obviously the way you've been doing it isn't working as well as you wanted it to work. So what do you need to do differently?
I love it. It's like, I can't remember whose book it was in, but like the difference between lead and lag indicators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know what book it came from. I have no idea, but I use it all the time.
Yeah, I want to say it's even in the 12-week year, maybe. Does that ring a bell? But regardless, like that's the thing, that you're adjusting your goal. And so many people start their businesses like that, right? Where they're like, I'm going to have a successful business and it's going to provide an income for my family. It's going to make it so my husband doesn't have to work at this job that he hates, and then we can work together, whatever it might be. And you change your goal all the way along. Oh, I guess this wasn't going to work out, so maybe I can settle for a business that just brings me in a little bit of extra spending money. Oh, maybe I can settle for a business that's just like a hobby and is fun. And we keep taking down the notch.
Yeah. So that brings a couple of different thoughts, because you mentioned this lag indicator, lead indicator. So let's unpack this, because I think this is a huge concept.
Me too.
But even before that, there's another thing that comes up. I used to teach, I still do, I just don't teach it actively live anymore, but I have a program called Ultimate Goal Getting. And I used to call it the Ultimate Goal Getting for hopeless procrastinators. But entrepreneurs are master procrastinators. I think the best entrepreneurs are the laziest people in the world. I call myself the laziest workaholic you'll ever meet. I'll work my tail off to create a little something so that I don't have to work, anymore. Yeah. It's the craziest thing, right? But what fascinates me is that people will set a goal and say, well, I want to make $1 million this year. And that's like, for most people call it a goal. It's not a goal, it's an intention. Right. And then there's this acronym of SMART, specific, measurable. I'm like, okay, it's specific, measurable, time bound, $100,000 in 12 months, very specific, very measurable, very time bound. It's still useless, because you have no control over how much money you will make. What do you have? That's why it's called a lag indicator. That's the result of whatever activities you're going to get involved in. So what the real goals are focused on lead indicators, which is activities you can control. So for example, like the very basic lead activities or lead indicators that I focus on with clients is how many connections will you make today? How many contacts you will make today? So if you reach out to 10 people a day, who controls how many people you will reach out to? You control it.
Yeah.
You can say, well, I'm going to make 5 appointments a day. You can't control that, because you don't know how many people will respond and book an appointment. What you can control is how many people you will reach out to. So if you set an intention, I want to have 2 sales conversations a day, great. Then you've got that's still a lag indicator. A lead indicator is how many connections is it going to take to make 2 appointments. And for some people, it may take 5. For some people, it may take 25. But I don't care. You find out what that number is. And then every day of the week, you have a very specific measurement system, which is 1 for yes, 0 for no. And it's very specific. Did I make
almost or tried?
No. Did I make 25 calls today? Yes or no? Or connections? Yes or no? Yes, 1 for yes, no for 0, 0 for no. Now, what happens if you make 23 calls? It's still a 0. Did you make, because the question is very specific. Did you make 25 connections today? Well, I made 23. Okay, so that's a no. You didn't make 25. It's a 0. So what happens is if this was your only goal, your maximum score for a week is 5. So what if you score 2? Well, that's a horrible score, right? So what you want to do is maybe adjust your activities and make it 20 calls a week, so you can hit it 95% of the time. That's how winners set themselves up to win. And then when I was talking about, the book called War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, a phenomenal book that I think lots of entrepreneurs should read. He talks about being professionals. right? So amateurs show up and wing it. Look, everybody is a professional, or at some point has been a professional employee. You showed up for work. You showed up, you did your work. Now, you didn't get paid every day, and you didn't achieve everything every day. You just showed up, you did a little bit of work, a little bit of work, a little bit of work, and then once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month, you get paid,
Yeah.
right? And you just keep showing up, you kept doing your work, and then once in a while, you get paid. Well, being a successful entrepreneur is very much like this. You show up every day, and you work on your lead indicators. You keep making the connections. You keep making the connections. And you're not thinking, oh my God, I didn't make my $100,000. It's like, that's going to come. What your job is to be a professional, rain or snow or sunshine, you show up and you make your 25 connections. And every day you ask yourself, did I make it? Yes or no? Did I make it? Yes or no? If you didn't, do you need to lower the goal, or do you need to change your behavior a little bit to make it happen? And you just do it 5 days a week, day in, day out, day in, day out. That's that's how success is created, and most people just don't want to do it.
It's so true. And I'm sure even as people are listening, there's still the story that could be coming up where they're like, well, maybe that's how success is created for some people, but some people are just luckier that they still are going to do that stupid story. That's the story that keeps you stuck. Like what Adam is sharing with you right now, this is the truth that's going to set you and your business free. And recognizing it's showing up for your work, showing up for your life work every day.
Yep. And you're right. People will tell themselves stories, and it's, look, middle class and poor people are made out of stories that are perpetuated by generations. And resistance and inertia are very powerful forces, right? They're actually the most formidable enemies that every single one of us has to conquer. But resistance does not show up, knock on the door and say, hey, I'm resistance. I'm here to screw you over, right? It shows up as the most intelligent, most elegant excuse.
Wow.
Well, I live in a small town. Where would I find 25 connections a day? Well, so you see, there you go. I don't have to do it. It's impossible for me. I just got a perfect excuse. Well, if that's what you told yourself, congratulations. You just got your way out of becoming successful and wealthy in life. You've accomplished your goal of staying broke, miserable, and poor and middle class. If that's what you wanted, congrats. All right. So there was something else I was going where. Oh, so if you look at some of the most successful bestsellers, for example, like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
Right. Now, successful people took it for what it was. The masses, and again, I don't mean to be dismissive or insultive, but you really have to recognize the mediocre way of thinking. The masses took it as a recipe for doing nothing and getting rich.
Yeah,
So the successful people realized, look, the key to getting to be more productive and getting ahead is outsourcing. Right? You've got to let other people help you, and the activities that can be done for $10 while you are making $100. That's the power of leverage. That's what successful people heard, and they go, how can I do it better? There are ways I can use outsourcing, even if I'm not a multi-million-dollar company. You and I can immediately use outsourcing. Go to a website like Fiverr, and for $5, get something done that would have taken you 10 hours. And they'll whip it out for $5, right? That's what 4-Hour Work Week is all about. Most of the world is looking for, how do I work 4 hours a week and become a millionaire? Here's your answer. You don't. You don't. It's just that simple. Well, how do I make passive revenue while I sleep? Real answer, you don't. All right. Before you make passive revenue, learn how to make leverage revenue. Before you make leverage revenue, learn how to actually make active revenue. Can you take something you are superbly good at, become better at it, and learn how to show up and get paid for it? When you learn how to do this, then you're going to figure out how to make it leverage. And then eventually, maybe it will become scalable enough so it's semi-passive. But it never becomes passive before it's active.
I love it. And it seems like a big thread with that mindset, too, is like with the how can I get paid $1 million for working only 4 hours a week, which actually has bled really into the millennial big movement as well. And it's showing up really interesting there. But a big piece of that, I think, is thinking so much in an inward mindset versus that outward mindset of like showing up to really serve people with your gifts. So even as we're saying, like getting paid for what you do best, that's because you gave massive value with what you do best. You know, you showed up and met need.
Sure. You know, so I'm going to be devil's advocate and play to this
Good.
millennial thing a little bit because, you know, I've got my own energy on it. But there is a story that comes up for me. So I had this client slash student, and he came to a couple of my events, and I kind of hired him a little bit to help with the events and just kind of give him a chance, give him a leg up.
Yeah.
And he's gotten some traction, and you know, young buck. And I said, you know what, I'm doing this mastermind thing, and it's my own private mastermind. You're a smart guy. I actually want to invite you over, but I've got a couple of partners that, you know, it's kind of our mastermind, so you need to be vetted. And so he comes and he gets vetted, and you know, one of my partners in this mastermind is asking, well, so tell me about your day. He says, well, you know, I go surfing in the morning, then I spend, you know, about 3-4 hours at Starbucks and just get the work done, and then, you know, I just do whatever I want to do. And my partner in that mastermind could not get it through. It's like, he's such a millennial, he's just lazy, he just want to go surf. It's like he does not belong in our mastermind.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? That little young buck is a very well-known internet multimillionaire. He's got a very well-known programs today. So what I want to speak to is that, you know, not all the thinking that millennials bring to the table is necessarily bad. Because when my partner heard, in that mastermind heard, you know, 4 hours in Starbucks, he goes, well, he's doing nothing. What to that person, to that kid, what 4 hours at Starbucks meant, he's putting in his headphones in, he's focusing on his computer, and he's banging out a couple of, you know, articles, and he's connecting, and he's doing whatever he needs to do to push his thing forward. What he refuses to do is sit there for 8-12 hours a day on the computer, reading stuff, you know, wasting a bunch of time. I want to, you know, I'm refusing to do kind of maintaining the status quo that it's going to take me 27 hours a day to become success.
Yeah.
Can I do which, by the way, brings us to like, what's the most leveraged activity you can get involved in? Like, what's the one thing that if you did it consistently every day, it's going to create most traction and most momentum, right? And that was this little kid's thinking. Like, if I do it for 4 hours, something creates a lot of leverage, and I push off everything else off my plate, how fast can I go in 4 hours a day?
Yeah. So
that's a little, I find myself, you know, in a unique place where I will actually defend millennials because it's not, not all as bad as we paint them, you know?
No, I do too. I think that there's just, you know, naturally there's some repercussions with them refusing really to live the lifestyle of the 9 to 5 and the hopefully you can have what you want after you're retired. Like they're totally not interested in that. And that's so healthy for our society. And then it's just been kind of a, you know, they've bumped up against, I've worked with a lot of corporate environments where the employees the young employees are expecting to be paid, you know, $25 an hour for really menial labor, and then expecting to be able to only work a few hours a day, and they shouldn't have to work too hard at that job. And some of them have lost a little bit of the art of just hard work and getting through that Genesis period, like we were discussing, where you're actually, you just show up and you do the work and you have that, which the guy that you mentioned definitely hadn't lost that. I love that story. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've got 2 daughters that are, 24, 22. They're definitely like millennials to the bone, right? And, they're in the place, we're in the marketplace. And it's kind of interesting, as they build their careers and kind of the stories they come home with, from interviews. So, but, there are 2 sides. There's definitely this attitude of entitlement. And I think that, it doesn't only go to millennials. So I think they kind of get somewhat unfairly labeled, but they've gotten it from somewhere. Right? It didn't it came through upbringing. So if anything, I always say, if you do this, there are 3 more fingers pointing right back at you. So, that's one thing to acknowledge. So, it's interesting. I don't know if I feel like I'm like taking over your interview.
No, there's just so many good things to talk about.
But, I talked about this high leverage activities moments ago, and I know that you've got a lot of your audience is young parents, probably moms with children, right?
Mhm.
And I think that, there's again this myth being perpetuated. The mass information that people see the most is again kind of like the 4-hour work week, something for nothing, or fancy cars or amazing, luxurious trips or whatever. And here's what I'm getting at. That's kind of the image that people have of millionaires. But
Yeah.
not every millionaires. And in fact, many millionaires, you might even know people that are millionaires. You would not have never known that they are, because
Yeah.
they're not about to flaunt it in your face. So it's not every millionaire, and not every person's dream to have luxurious cars and multiple homes and so on. So what you've got to think of is a couple of things. Number one is, what do you truly ultimately want? And I
Mhm.
want you to map out, this is actually from one of my clients, like map out your lifestyle, your money map to your
Yes.
lifestyle, right?
Yes.
How much will it cost you to do X, Y, Z? And don't start with, oh my God, I'll never be able to do it. Just forget about any negative thinking. Forget about, oh, it will never work. Oh, it's like, I don't even want to look at it. It's too scary. No, just sit down and ask yourself, so what would you ultimately want to do? And then do some homework and look at how much it will cost. And I promised you, you will be shocked how actually reachable and affordable that kind of lifestyle is.
Mm.
And then once you have that number, you want to ask yourself on a flip side, okay, what are your unique abilities? What are some things that you could do that, again, you could harness into a business, into an activity, into a product, into a service that you could provide for others that they will be willing to pay, that would allow you to bring that much money and more while still giving you time and the freedom to enjoy those activities. And to me, so your show is all about joy, right? And joyful living.
Yes.
That's really where the joy comes
Lifestyle.
in. Yeah, that's really where the joy comes in. Then you know that something you're really good at, you are doing it for the good of yourself and other people. It gives you, for me, it's a tremendous reward.
Mhm.
I love getting results. So
Yeah.
when I used to be a baker. It's something so rewarding when you just mix a bunch of nothing, throw it in the oven, and you've got this aroma of baked goods coming out, and you go like, look, I created this, like in an hour
Yeah.
and a half. Look what I've done. I took a bunch of nothings, put it together. Look at that. Amazing, right?
Mhm.
And that's, in a way, like we all are bakers of our own destinies. You take a bunch of nothings, you put them together into something, and everybody goes like, wow, how did you do that? Well, a little bit of hard work and sweat labor and a little bit, a couple of hours in the heat in front of the oven, and ta-da, there we go. But most people aren't willing to take the time. Figure out what you want. Figure out what are some things you have right now. You may have to get better at them, and you will as you practice. But you
Yeah.
can start right now, and it's going to very quickly take you to what you want. I've got moms who, I've one client who has just one son, but it's just like she wants to be there all the time, before
Mhm.
school, after school, and actually he's in school now, but before he was in school. And we took a couple of things that she did into a $750,000 business, working 3 days a week. She just had one assistant. And I've got a lot of clients who just, who want to work a few months out of the year, who want to take the summers off, or just a few days out of the week, and they want to be in this $500,000, $750,000 type spot, because they realize that's actually usually double or triple the money they need. So it's enough for right now and
Mhm.
enough to put away, and they don't have to give up their entire life to keep producing this.
Mm. I love this, which is all about being really smart and intentional in your business, which is something you coach people on how to do every single day. I wondered if you would be up for sharing. You have a 5C method for accelerating sales by 900%. Sorry, more than 90. Would you be up for sharing that, or would that be
You know,
applicable or something else?
it's so funny because I know it's like a question that we shared somewhere. And like just recently I was on the call and someone asked me this. I'm like, what the hell is my 5C method? I forgot what it was. It's just like, sometimes you come up with things and you go like, what the hell was it? But I know what it was.
Oh, good.
Um, Look, you can watch. Can I share a link?
Absolutely.
It's a link to my event, but go to revenuerevuplive.com,
Okay.
revenuerevuplive.com, And there is a video where I kind of walk through all the numbers for the 5C strategy. All right. But I'm going to give you threes because the threes are the most of what I use, the first three C's. All right.
Mm.
So the first one is your capture. So how are you going to capture your audience's attention? So whether you do podcasts or you build your list or you do blogging or you start a YouTube channel, whatever it is, you've got to have, actually, let me take it back. You've got to, crowd is the first one, crowd. So you build your crowd, right? The second one is capture. So once you know what that crowd is, how are you going to capture that crowd into repeat subscribers? So again, they're either subscribers or they're members of your Facebook group, or they subscribe to your YouTube channel, or they, you know, subscribe to get your updates when you publish article on your blog. But you have to capture them somehow. So now it's your audience. They became, from members of just crowd at large, they became your audience. All right. Then you have conversion. So how are you going to convert some of those subscribers or audience members into actual paying clients? All right. And then actually I'll give you the fourth one. The fourth one is cash value. So cash value is about how much do you charge for what you do? And this is probably one of the biggest accelerators. So let me give you an example of what that would look like. All right.
Yeah.
So let's just, you have to know who your crowd is. And then your fastest acceleration points are your capture, conversion, and cash value. All right. So let me just give you an illustration. When you go to an average website and it has an invitation to subscribe somewhere, that invitation to subscribe on a website will typically convert between 3 to maybe 10% of visitors, which means that 90 to 97% of the audience disappears. They come once and they never come back unless you capture them. Chances of them coming back are very slim, right? So now what if you took your website, what most people want to build is like those complex, beautiful websites. What if you scrapped that and you simply used an opt-in page, a lead magnet page? Those pages will convert on a low end, on a very bad end, 25%, which is already 2.5 times better than your previous best scenario.
Yeah.
And if you really get good, they should be converting at 40, 50, even 60% plus. 60% for a cold market. That's pretty darn good. But you can do this, right? So now you're capturing half or more of the visitors. That's a tremendous improvement, right? If you previously captured 3% and now you're capturing 60%, this is like 2,000% improvement. I mean, it's massive. It's 20. All right. Now, conversion. All right. Most people are horrible at sales. So regardless of what you do, let me just give you a quick illustration. If you have 10 prospects right now, every single month, that you get to have conversations with, or you pitch them on your goods, through whatever efforts, you know, you network, or, you know, they read your blog and reach out to you, whatever efforts, 10 people come to you a month. And through your current sales skills or conversion methods, whether it's sales conversation or a sales letter online, you convert one person, right? Now, if you improve your sales skills, again, whether it's one-on-one or you write a better sales letter, and now out of the same 10 people, 2 become clients, you just doubled your revenue for the exact same amount of effort and resources. Nothing has changed. You're still having 10 prospects. You're still having 10 connections, except before you made 1 sale, now you're making 2. You just doubled your money, all right? Now, realize we just improved capture. We just improved conversion. If you just combine that two, that's already a huge leverage point. But now check this out. So I've got clients, and I do it so many times, it's like crazy. Just recently, you know, a client came to me. She was selling a course, a very good course, for $50. What we did is we made a few tweaks to that course, and it now became $1,000 course. And before, you know, she would kind of hustle and go on network and do all sorts of things. and so sell a few of those courses in hopes to like get people into coaching later on and some other things.
Yeah.
And it worked somewhat, but not as well. Well, now she's hosting once a week webinar, and that once a week webinar typically converts anywhere between 15 and 20 people into a sale.
Wow.
She's now essentially making between $40,000 and $60,000 a month doing just this webinar, one webinar a week. All because what we did is we changed the cash value of the transaction from $50 to $1,000. And then we improved the conversion point. So those are the I gave you 4 C's.
Yeah.
All right. But the 3 are really most important. The capture. Are you capturing as many leads as you can? Are you converting as many leads into prospects and clients as you can? And have you tested maximizing the cash value of every transaction?
I love that. That is such potent advice. I hope that you guys are all taking notes and writing that down. That was invaluable, Adam. Thank you.
I can tell you that's kind of part of my, fastest path to cash formula for so many businesses. When I look at what it is that they do, there are so many, in those 3 leverage points, there's so much gold in every business, whether it's brand new business or existing one, that they're just leaving so much money on the table. If we just look at those 3, I call them, my profit levers. It's like, how do we adjust those profit levers, the little dial buttons? And all of a sudden magic starts happening in the business. You're getting 2, 3, 10 times the revenue for the same amount of effort, or actually even less.
That's invaluable. And I'm curious if you wouldn't mind speaking to, I know as people are listening, they'll be like, okay, well, I've currently got like the $50 product, right? But I don't really feel like I could charge $1,000, right? How do they shift from just some simple strategies, if anything comes to mind, of just how someone could really carve out their space in their market and shift from just being, somebody who knows a few things to really more of an expert or a leader in that market?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of that is our own story, right? Like, so like, how do you break through that, right?
It's such an interesting question, because it's sort of what it brings up for me is something that I teach so much, and that is that which becomes to you the easiest, you should get paid for the most. But where it comes into play, and here it's like you ask me this question, I'm almost going like, doesn't everybody know how to do this? It's like, duh, why do you even bother? Like, it's so simple. It's so simple, right? But look, so you kind of gave part of the answer in the question. So one is you've got to decide. You've got to decide that you are going to become a high value resource for a certain segment of the market. You've got to decide what do you want to be known for. All right. And it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. You just have to decide what is your thing. If you were to work on your thing for the next 2 to 3, for the next 6 months to 3 years, what would you want to be known for? Right? You may not be known for it today, but in a few months, in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, what would you want people at large, if someone asks about you, like, hey, what's this guy all about? Or what's this guy all about? What would you want the response to be? You have to start with that in mind, and you decide, okay, that's what I'm working towards. And then you ask yourself, in order to do this, what would it take? Well, one is associate with other people in that space. So very simple, start interviewing other experts in that space. And here's something that people get so, confused about, which is, well, if I introduce, those experts to my audience, won't they take my business away? No. It only elevates your status that you can reach out and hang out with those giants in your industry. All right. So don't try to be, the superstar at first. Remember, stars don't shine. Stars reflect light. Right. So don't try to become a superstar by, being in a vacuum, going like, all of a sudden I'm going to just somehow, shine brightly. No.
Yeah.
You like other people, and you're going to shine because of their brilliance. Right. And you become elevated by association. Another thing is start teaching. It's my go-to tool. You can't elevate yourself into a thought leadership and by not sharing what your thoughts are. What's your approach? What's your philosophy? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with in the industry? What are some things you stand for? What are some things you can't stand? Speak out to that. And it's not only how to that you teach, it's opinions that matter. You think about what makes experts, it's the fact that they share opinions.
Wow.
I love the financial pundits on TV. I don't watch TV at all anymore, but you know, it's one of those guys that like has the financial show on TV. And I read a statistic once that like over the last 7 years, his annual predictions were wrong all 7 years in a row. And yet he is still the go-to expert. So it doesn't matter if his predictions are right or wrong. What matters is that he's making them because people go like, oh, I want to know what his predictions are. That's, sometimes people go like, well, what if I'm wrong? Well, if you're wrong, you will correct yourself. But it's better to be wrong than not be at all. All right. So again, make connections with powerful people, start teaching. And then another one is actually do increase your prices. Price is an indicator, a shortcut indicator for quality. If you don't value yourself, no one else will. If you tell the world I'm cheap, the world will go, okay. If you will tell the world, I charge a lot because I'm worth it, the world will go, okay.
Yeah. So true. So good. And I know we could just go on for another whole hour because I have so many other thoughts coming, but just a few things as I was thinking, people are going to be so fired up to apply some of these pieces as they're listening to the show. And one of the things that whomever was writing your bio that I keep referring, the mention that I thought would be really valuable to kind of tie this together is, what to do in the hard times. It was said in your bio of just like how to get through the depression, the dark days that every entrepreneur has, but we don't really talk about anymore, or talk about much, right? What are your thoughts about, okay, I'm going to put this into action, and then they fall on their face, right?
Yeah. That's a question that takes an hour to have conversation about, right? It's so big.
Yeah.
I don't think it's talked about enough. And, it impacts a lot of people. It's like they get to this dark place where they become paralyzed. And it's different from men and women, right?
Yeah.
So again, excuse me, I know that a lot of your audience is women. And, so you've got children, you've got possibly a spouse, or maybe you're just solo mom. And it's like you're constantly about giving to someone else. When do you find time to nourish yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes you may find a group of people to congregate with, and all they want to do is they can congregate and they can have conversations about the misery, but often they don't switch the conversations to like, hey, what's the possibility? What's the bright side? What's the future? What do we want to work towards? So if you stay in the negativity part of it, it's often, it perpetuates. And then you get so sucked into this, and the only thing you can see is the bad things, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you work on something for a long period of time and it's not getting traction, and that's depressing too. So, and then for men, if they work on something and it's not getting traction and they can't bring home the bacon, so to speak, it's extremely demoralizing, right? It's like they lose the manhood. I mean, we're supposed to be, and this is not a sexist remark, it's like men are built to be protectors and providers. And if they can't do that, the self-esteem just crashes, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I think very important is realize that you're not the only one and ask for help, right? It's okay. I mean, as embarrassing as it is, when you acknowledge what is, and I know it's easy to hear it, to say it from a perspective of like emerging through it, being after it, but in the time, it's very hard to do. Find who are, your friends, who is the one or two friends that you can go to and just confide and say, look, here's what's going on. The stuff is hitting the fan. I can't handle it. It's like, what do I do? Yeah. You've got to find someone that's going to be able to, absorb it and be more than sympathetic, be empathetic. Meaning like, I know what's going on. I hear your pain. I will cry with you, but then I'm going to smack you up the head and set you straight. Right?
Yes.
Versus sympathetic people just go like, oh, okay, oh, poor you. Oh, yeah, I totally get it. Oh, economy sucks. Government sucks. Your spouse sucks. Oh, life is busy. Oh, I get it. No. It's like, I get that that's how you feel, but then shut up and what do you need to do next, right? So you've got to find someone. Second, reconnect to what's your actual vision and purpose? Why are you trying to do what you're trying to do? And to me, that's huge. I was looking at my shelf, but I have it in my downstairs office. I have a couple of big binders called raving fans. And, every time we do something amazing or anything, and people send us thank you letters or cards, I keep print them out if it's email or if it's a card, we should simply put it in the binder. And we've got 2-3-inch binders. They're just massive. They're overflowing. And, all I have to do is open one of them and just look at 2 or 3 pieces of the client send us. And I go, wow, I remember why I do what I do. And it doesn't matter that it's hard today. It's going to pass. Right. And then the ultimate best solution for recovering fast when you're in a dark place is go and help someone else. Like shift your focus off yourself and start doing something for someone else. I got really fortunate. I got written in Wall Street Journal once for my kind of, unusual solutions for getting psyched up and fired up when you don't feel like it. And one of them is what I call my 1-800-DEFUNK line. 1-800-DEFUNK. It doesn't exist. It's just, that's what I call it, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of friends that we have this agreement. When any one of us is in the funk, we just kind of text each other and go like 1-800-DEFUNK, right? And we get on the phone, and here's how it works. For the first 3 to 5 minutes, we have a carte blanche to just, bitch, groan, and moan, and just complain, and just, life is miserable, and it sucks, and blah, blah, blah. Just blame the world, and just like get it out of your system. And then again, but we agree, it's like 3 minutes is usually a good enough time. And then we go, okay, how can I help you? And from this point, you shift completely on the other person. Now, here's what's amazing about it. That after the first 3 minutes, we actually don't typically feel better. It actually feels even worse. It's like, now you got it out of your system, you feel better? No, not really. All right, what can I do for you? All right, and then you start helping the other person go like, what's really going on? What's the research you need? What are you working on? And then 10 minutes into the conversation, when you really focused on someone else and you've helped them, you forgot about your own problems. You go like, oh my God, I feel on fire. Oh my God, it's like, I get so excited. So
so you're saying like you would vent and then you ask,
yes,
how can I help you to that person?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, genius.
Yes, they don't help us. They're just there to listen for the 3 minutes. And then once we stop complaining, then we focus on how can I help you? And we help them.
Wow.
And that act of shifting attention off ourselves and onto being of service to someone else, it just magic happens.
Wow.
Magic happens. And by the way, the second part of the call has no time limit. So if it takes an hour and you like work with someone on their stuff, it takes an hour. I promise you, at the end of the time, you will be on fire. You go like, wow, I want to, because in the process of solving someone else's problem, you actually start realizing that your situation actually isn't all that bad. And you start seeing possibilities and solutions that you can start focusing on.
Oh my gosh. Invaluable. Such a cool idea. I'm excited to put that into practice. And man, Adam, I just have loved every minute of having you on the show. And I feel just so much respect for your path and for your insights and really appreciate you bringing them here. I would love for those who wanted to connect with you more, or learn more about what you do. What's the best link that we could send them to?
I would love for them to come and join me at my Facebook group, fastestpathtocash.club. Fastest Path to Cash.
Oh, got it.
Club, CLUB.
Very cool.
That's a cool place to hang out. And other than that, you can go to my main website, themarketingmentors.com.
I love it. Man, well, Adam, we always ask a few joyful living kinds of questions to every special guest. And so I wonder if we could do that before we close, and then you can share last insights or thoughts.
Now you're going for the scary part.
I know. Are you ready? So first of all, we are, through the show and the discussions we have here, we're big proponents that happiness is not a one-size-fits-all kind of a situation, that everybody's path and journey and even desires of what they want for their own happiness and joy look different. And so we've coined the phrase that everybody has their own flavor of joyful living. So would you share a little bit about what does Adam's flavor of joyful living look and feel like? Which I feel like, PS, is a lot of what you've already shared, but like, it's kind of been the undertone. You can tell that you have so much joy and passion for what you do, but if there's anything you'd like to add.
Again, it's like, I think I've got more than one flavor, but I think when you can purposefully harness that which you find the easiest or most pleasurable to do for the purpose of elevating yourself and others, I think there's magic in it, and it gives you choices in life. So I think to me, that's kind of the joyful living, finding something purposeful that that elevates you and others. And because when you do it effectively, it gives you choices. And again, it's just magic.
I love that. Okay. And then now some rapid fire questions. So you just answer the first thing that comes to mind, no judgment. And it's just fun. Okay. So what does joyful living look like? And this could be like more logistical or kind of a peek into your life, right? What does joyful living look like with your friends?
Getting together for food, drinks, and just fun conversation.
So fun. I love it. How about joyful living with your family?
Outing to the beach.
Ooh, so fun. Love it. And how about joyful living with your spouse?
I think deep, meaningful conversations.
Ooh, I love that. I want to have you back on to talk more about marriage and those kinds of pieces. So we'll have to explore if that's a good fit. But yes, I love it. And then how about joyful living in solo time, just on your own?
Probably learning and thinking. I love to learn, and I love to have time to think through what I'm absorbing.
Ooh, I love that. That's powerful. And then how about joyful living with the divine, whatever your flavor is, universe, nature?
Again, just solo time to be connected. Yeah, I'm an introvert craving for attention. So I think this is coming out like, just give me solo time. I need to recharge my batteries.
Create really big to create more solo time, right?
This divine, this connection with divine, it's really, I may not be a religious person, but I'm a very faithful person. So it's like, to me, faith, there's magic in faith. And I think most people confuse faith and religion. Yeah. It's just, and there's stories, that I could show you. It's like mentors have shared with me and kind of where I took it, where I truly believe I will be taken care of. And it's not that the universe owes me, but it cares about me, and it cares about me flourishing and being success. And I shouldn't even say it cares about me. It's just, it's structured to support me in expressing myself to the highest potential. So no matter what's going on ever, I don't get frazzled. I don't get frustrated. It's like, you know what? I know that there is something coming out of it that I can't see it, but it's going to be freaking magical. And I'm just going to ride the wave, because it's going to be awesome.
Oh my gosh. I love that. So powerful. Just in any closing thoughts, is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't, or just any final thoughts to wrap up with the audience, your beliefs, your passion?
Just a couple of things. And out of this one question here, like, what's my joyful, you said, like, by myself, and I talked about learning and thinking about it. I think we all have thoughts, but very few people are actually doing thinking. We all have thoughts. Very few people actually think. Right. So, if you've caught this interview, you've enjoyed part of it, or some of it, think through what you've learned and how it can apply to you. Like, actually think through what it would look like if you were to harness one of those ideas, one of those concepts we talked about. What would it look like for you? And then the second thing is, realize that money is universe's payment method for your talents in application of service to other people.
Wow.
Talents is a universe's payment method for your talents employed in service to other people. So if you're not generating enough, the question isn't how do I get more clients? How do I make more sales? I mean, those are good questions, but in my conversations with people, I always start with like, how can you be of more service to more people faster? If you want to accelerate your wealth, think about how can you be of more service to more people faster? And if you find the answers to that and you follow through on application methods to those answers, you will most likely do very, very well.
Wow. So powerful. I'm just writing that down. Just reemphasize, how can you be of more service to more people faster?
Yep.
Powerful, powerful stuff. This has been such an epic podcast. Adam, thank you for just not holding back and bringing massive value and showing up to serve my listeners, who I am certain are getting massive value as a result. And please check out Adam's links. I'll have those in the show notes. And meanwhile, Adam, just thank you again with all my heart for showing up for today and just sharing all that you have with us. It's been truly a joy. And I'm sure that those listening are going to be inspired and energized and empowered to move forward as a result.
Well, I feel like I hijacked some of your conversation here at moments, but I appreciate it. It's just such a pleasure to be here and have this conversation with you. So thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you to all of you listening. And know that in all things, we're cheering you on to create and choose the joyful life that you desire and to take action today. And so much love to you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And in the end, only love will last.
You've been listening to Joyful Living. If you haven't already done so, be sure to email me at quinn@joyfullivingmovement.com so I can send you our yummy Joyful Living welcome package filled with lots of awesomeness, including access to our private Joyful Living network. I read every email from my listeners and would love to hear from you. Also, be sure to leave a review on iTunes, and most importantly, have a joy-filled day.